Hello and welcome to the Madhouse UK podcast. I'm Steve Tierney. Now, I don't podcast very often these days, as you know. It's difficult to constantly find good content, but every once in a while something pops up that requires a personal touch, so I can kind of talk to you face to face rather than kind of just the written word, which can be misunderstood, and sometimes things can seem to be harsher than they're meant to be or softer than they're meant to be. So I think talking face to face has some value then. So I wanted to talk about something that's kind of happened this week and is unfolding since the last turn of Dungeonworld. And for people who aren't used to the Madhouse UK podcast, it tends to be focused around the online game Dungeonworld, that is a turn-based game that's been running for over 20 years. So what happened? Well, one of the American players, a postal player, attacked and killed a character in the game. Now, for many players who have played lots of online games, they'll say, well, so what? You know, PvP, player versus player, that's entirely common, and people do get killed. That's not true of Dungeonworld. Now, it's not that player versus player action is illegal in the game or out of the game. You know, you're allowed to do it. But it's always been the case that if you attack another character, there are significant in-game consequences to doing that. And those are meant to be a deterrent. They're meant to make you think, "Ooh, I didn't really want to do that," because I don't think it's never been realistic. I don't like the idea that you just can't attack other characters. There are times when, with the proper appropriate role play and build up, it's a good thing to allow to happen in a controlled fashion. But if a game just devolves into factions attacking one another, then it loses all its structure, and everything that you've built up kind of dissolves away into interpersonal disputes. And it's rare for people to be able to keep these interpersonal disputes in the game. Often they become out of character too, and it all gets very bitter, and players end up falling out with one another, and you lose people. And I value the fact that we've had some of our players have played for 2 decades, and even new players come and get invested in the game and involved in the game very quickly, and they're able to do that because it's got a fairly unique setting, and that is that it emulates tabletop roleplay in a way. You're all on the same side versus the game. That's not always the case. It's been a big game and it's been on for a long time, and we've had Dark Walkers, and we've had monster positions, and we've had things in the past where it's been possible to be the bad guy, if you like, or to at least play as the rebel. But it's never really worked that well. It's a fun part of the game that is part of the game's history, and we can talk about it and enjoy what happened, and it's built up some legends. But there's a reason those things aren't still going on. It's because they have their time, and then they go out of all shape and recognition. So what's this player done wrong? Well, nothing. I mean, they're allowed to attack and kill a character, but it's normally assumed that if you're going to, remember, if you're playing a game like Dungeonworld, you're putting your time and your money and your energy into developing the character to have fun with it. It's not fun if out of the blue, for absolutely no reason, that character is killed by, a surprise attack from other characters, sometimes multiple other characters. And it's not why people play the game. Now, it doesn't mean you can't do it. You can do it, and we have ways to manage those situations that are fair to all parties involved. But I don't want the game devolving into a constant tit-for-tat, players killing other players. That's not what it's designed for. That's not what it's meant to be. And so to make that difficult without outlawing it, we make those in-game consequences significant. So I said on the Facebook group, this player's about to have his whole position outlawed. Now, for those who don't know, if you kill a character in the game, what happens is you get the tag outlaw on you, which means everyone else can kill you. And they do. They all pile on, and it's very, very quickly the end unless you're a very fast runner. So, it pretty much ends your normal interaction with the game. And the problem with that is it's possible for a player to set up throwaway characters whose sole purpose is to be bad news for someone else for no good reason. And then, they don't care if they get killed. Well, the in-game consequences can be bigger than just your character who did the murder being outlawed. It's possible, if I decide right, and remember, the final decision's down to me. I'm the out-of-game GM who has to manage all these complex situations. So I have a look at each situation, and I try and think, what's the right approach to this? And if I think that your characters are being set up to be disposable, so you'll pay no consequence for what you did, then what I'll do is I'll outlaw several of your other characters who have nothing to do with it. And obviously immediately you'll shriek, that's not fair, but it's totally fair. And I'll explain why. It's fair because in the game, you're in a kingdom with absolute rule by the crown and the royal courts. They can decide any law they like. It's a very dark medieval setting in that respect. It's almost totalitarian, should they choose to use it that way. So there's no reason why they can't, and it's a magical game, don't forget. So they can say, well, we found magical connections between the outlaw and these co-conspirators, and so they're all outlaws. And you can bluster about it, but you can't stop it. Out of game, it's fair, because the first rule in our house rules is the GM's decision in all matters is final. And that's there for a reason. It's there so that if I deem it necessary, I can step in and give you a smackdown. Now, you probably will take it personally if I do that, but you shouldn't. Because I don't hold any grudges about this. What I want, once you've got used to the ethos of the game, is for you to enjoy it and add to the mystique and the legend of the game. And there are good ways to make yourself the bad guy and to create this situation where you can be in conflict with other groups and characters. But those ways aren't surprise sneak attacks with multiple characters set up to be throwaway or anything like that. The way to do that is through long roleplay, through the Facebook group, or if you don't have access to that, through the player notice board and through written missives and diplomacy, to build up this animosity in a believable way, so that so that the other side has an opportunity to say no, you've got that wrong, and back out if they don't like it, or to say bring it on, in which case both sides have agreed and you're both going to have fun with it, and then you can build it up to a point where it becomes a part of the game that everyone enjoys. So that's the proper way to handle it. If you just come flying in and try to create a great big scene, well, just like it would if you was in a real world, there's going to be consequences. Not just the law and order coming after you, but consequences to your friends and your family, because if somebody commits a big crime, it has knock-on effects all over the board, and the same is true in the game of Dungeonworld. So if I wanted to, if I thought someone was just being deliberately destructive and malicious because they wanted to make a mess of the game and then, toddle off into the sunset, then I could make every one of their characters on every one of their positions an outlaw. I could make all their mates' characters an outlaw. Now, I've never had to do this, I stress, because people normally get the ethos in time, and those who don't tend to leave the game. And that's fine. If what you love is PvP, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Go play a game that loves it. This is a game that allows it in special circumstances, as long as it works within the plot and everybody agrees to it. You're not going to be allowed. Some players who've played this game for a long time, even a short time, are investing their own time and money into it. And you're not going to be allowed to just run roughshod over them because you fancy yourself a moment in the spotlight as an anti-hero. All of this stuff is doable. You can do almost anything. I'll help you do things if you spend the time and have the appropriate roleplay considerations to get there. And if you don't, you're going to run into trouble. And you won't like it. And you won't win, ultimately, because I'm not in the game. I run the game. So there's what it finally boils down to. Now, it could be that all of this stuff is just bluster and roleplay, and if so, great, bring it on. It's going to be awesome. What a lot of fun it will be to see this kind of build up. We've had groups like these in the past rise up, and great if that's what it's about. But the reason it didn't seem to be like that is because when you sent messages to the Facebook group, you mixed in and out of character in a way that sounded sort of personal, like you were talking about stuff out of game gripes. That's not the way to do it. We're all in the game to have fun, and I'm in the game to run it for people who want to have fun. And if that's not what you're about, having fun, as the bad guy, as the good guy, whatever, if you're not about having fun and about playing in a way that everyone else can have fun and enjoy what we're all doing together, then this Dungeonworld's not the game for you. And I don't say that lightly, because I want it to be the game for everyone. Obviously I do. I'm a businessman, and it's my labour of love through half of my life. So more than half my life now. So of course I want people to be able to be free to have fun. But you must understand that I am protective of this game, and within reason I will step in and resolve situations that are created that I don't think are right. And if you don't like it, you've got options. There's loads of games out there, aren't there? There's lots of great fun games, and there's lots I could even recommend here that where you'll be able to go and kill people to your heart's content. I was going to say, if you don't like it, don't play my game, but that sounded a bit too much like something else, and I just thought, no, I don't want to go that route. Anyway, look, just to be completely clear, there's a way back from this, right? if you guys who are kind of planning this insurrection are prepared to do it with some role play and with some build up, and then make sure that the characters that you're going to attack and kill, their players out of the game, want to be part of your in-game beef and are enjoying that, then do it that way. And as long as everyone's happy with it, great. But if your intention is just to ruin people's day and make them open their turns and go, what the hell, why has this happened? If that's your intention, that's not what Dungeon World's about. Dungeon World's about players versus the game. PvP, that's very rare and it should be fun. That's it. Thanks very much. Talk to you soon.